Tomorrow's God, Our Greatest Spiritual Challenge by Neale Walsch. Chapter 6, Redefining God's Character. Our complicated relationship with change has created a complicated relationship with God. Yes, why? Why is that so? Because there is another word that is interchangeable with God, and that is change. Here we go again. Does this ever end? This continual redefining of God? We are not redefining God. We are actually fully defining God for the first time. We are expanding that definition to include ever more subtle nuances that will allow the human mind to more deeply understand the nature of God. God's character, if you please. Thus to see divinity in more places, so to heal its sense of separation and estrangement and to embrace its unity with deity. That is exactly what humanity needs right now. It is what we need to see more of. Need does not exist, it is an illusion. Given where humanity says it wishes to go, however, and given what it claims it wishes to experience, this expansion of its definition of God would be useful and beneficial. Now, I said earlier that God is that which is constantly present and constantly changing, suiting itself to each moment so that God may be understood in that moment, embraced in that moment, experienced in that moment, and expressed in that moment. I also said that the words God and life were interchangeable. And now what I want to tell you is that life is a process of change. This is why the words God and change are synonymous. Here then comes another shift in your understanding. Yesterday's God was said to be that which never changes. That God has even been called the unmoved mover. So here is the sixth important difference between yesterday's God and tomorrow's God. Tomorrow's God is ever changing. You really want the whole paradigm, practically everything we have ever thought about God, to be thrown out, don't you? Not thrown out, expanded. You have had a limited awareness. It's time to expand your awareness. In a sense, your old idea of God as that which never changes was correct. As that which never changes was correct. Was never. In a sense, your old idea of God as that which never changes was correct. It was simply incomplete. It did not contemplate or consider that the one thing which never changed about God could be that God is always changing, that this could be the constant. In fact, it is. God is always expanding and becoming. The process of expansion has becoming never ends. It is how life functions. It is how life adapts. It is how life sustains itself. This process is what you have called evolution. I hate to tell you this, but some things in life never change. Nothing in life never changes. Nothing. Well, some things certainly seem to not change. Name one thing. Wait a minute, we've been here before. You've discussed this before in a previous conversation using the parable of the rock. Yes, but it is good to visit this understanding again. Clarity emerges from wisdom revisited, and not everyone has read the transcripts of those previous dialogues. Okay, so we'll stick with the rock example. We'll talk about the rock in my garden. They're there, they've been there for years, they've not changed a bit. They are inert objects and they do not change. Wrong, they move, they change, they're in constant motion. Under a high intensity microscope, you would see this. You would see particles constantly in motion, racing at incredible speeds relative to their size, spinning their tail. It is their story. It is the story of the rock. All of life is energy and motion. Nothing stands still. Nothing, not a single thing in the universe is static. All is moving, and movement is change. Can't some things move and still remain the same? The rock in my garden look exactly the same today as it did 10 years ago, 20 years ago, heck, 100 years ago. Not all of the energy in the universe is vibrating at the same speed or frequency or what you might call the same level of consciousness. Energy that is totally aware of itself moves in faster ways to produce difference. Energy that is not totally aware of itself moves very slowly, producing over and over again nearly the same pattern that existed before, until the pattern alters itself over a very long period of time. So that's why the rock looks as if it's staying the same, while my appearance changes from year to year. Year to year. Try month to month. Actually, day to day. Although those day-to-day changes, like the changes of the rock, are not noticed. Energy systems that vibrate at lower rates of speed are more dependable, more reliable, more stable. This is precisely because they produce over and over again the same pattern that existed before, until the pattern alters itself over a very long period of time. The universe, for instance, spins in such a pattern. Your Milky Way has been spinning in the same way for billions of years, and you can count on it to spin the same way for billions of years more. It all has to do with levels of self-awareness. Are you saying that rocks are self-aware? Everything is self-aware, but levels of self-awareness differ. Highly self-aware energy always seeks to become more self-aware. Once an energy system becomes increasingly aware of itself, it seeks to become more and more self-aware. How are you going to keep them down on the farm once they have seen Paris? Exactly. The more you know, the more you want to know. The more you experience, the more you want to experience. This is the nature of life. Life seeks more life through the process of life itself. That's poetic. It's also true. So what I'm saying here is that the faster an energy vibrates, the faster it is going to vibrate. In other words, things speed up. What about the law of inertia, which says that an object in motion tends to stay in motion, an object in rest tends to stay in rest? Strictly speaking, nothing is ever at rest. So the new law of your new world emerging from the new spirituality would say that an object in motion tends to stay in motion and all objects are in motion. And that motion is the process of evolution. Yes, exactly, yes. Okay, I see this, I understand this, but what does this have to do with God and me and my daily life? I said that what we were going to do here is redefine God's character. So long as humanity sees God the way it currently does, God will assign to God all the sorts of characteristics that are simply not part of the true nature of God and have nothing to do with who and what God is. Remember when I said earlier that the God in whom you believe isn't real, the God in whom you believe is made up? Yes, I was pretty startled when you made that statement. Yet it's true. Yesterday's God is a God you created out of thin air, having nothing to do with ultimate reality. What I'm explaining now is ultimate reality. A little of it anyway, so that you can begin to understand, begin to grasp the complexity of it, sophistication of it, the subtlety of the whole system. Hang in there through this little short course in the physiology of God and life, because after you hear this, you will never be able to think of God in the same way again. Okay, I'm with you. I'm right with you. Good. Now to pick up where I left off, all energy is self-aware, but not all energy is aware that it is self-aware. I beg your pardon. All of life, down to the tiniest cell, molecule, or submolecular particle, contains intelligence. This basic intelligence is built in. It is a cellular encoding. Because that is true, these tiny particles move in ways that make sense. Their movement produces a specific and predictable outcome. This outcome is called life. At the macro level, it is called the cosmology of the universe. At the micro level, it is called the particle of physics, superstring theory, and so forth. And somewhere in the middle is us. Now you're with me. Yes. Some of you call this built-in intelligence the survival instinct. All of your laws of physics and its predictability have been based on the understanding at which you have just arrived. Now comes an interesting twist. At a certain point in the process of evolution, life energy becomes aware that it is aware of itself. It's a big event. Yes, you bet. It is life becoming aware of what life is in its present form. It is supremely impacting because it produces what I call the separation phenomena. This is what an element of life first has This is when an element of life first has the idea that it is separate from God. It is the first pivotal moment. Prior to this moment, energy particles express themselves as part of an overall system. Their intelligence was experienced as the intelligence of the system, kind of like the Borg in Star Trek. Actually, exactly like that, only without any malevolent intent. In the first pivotal moment of self-discovery, an energy unit becomes conscious of itself as part of its system, rather than as the system itself. Its identity as part of the system soon expands into a thought that it is separate from the system. Uh-oh. Yes, that is the great uh-oh of the universe. It is the mother of all uh-ohs. Actually, That's true, literally, because it gives birth to the next emerging process of life, chaos. Chaos, as in chaos theory, exactly. The thought of being something other than the system in which springs chaos to life. Wow, you're making physics relevant here. This is great. So go on. How does the idea of separation from the all create chaos in the system? While a unit of energy becomes self-aware, it is losing its awareness of the larger system of which it is a part. Its intelligence, which is really the intelligence of the system, is now experienced as its own intelligence. An example of this is what's occurring right now. It is, yes, in what way? You think this is you talking, and really this is me. Part of you thinks that this explanation right now is something that is coming from your intelligence. It is not and could not, because you don't have any of this. Yet because it came through you, you think it belongs to you. You think it is yours, and really it is ours. The intelligence I am talking about. I am talking about the intelligence that is now bringing these words forth. You're right, sometimes I do think that this is all coming from me. Even when I know better, I sometimes think that. Don't feel bad, it's natural. I'm explaining to you here just how natural it is. It's part of how life works. And of course, the intelligence is coming from you. It's coming from the part of you that is me. That is, it's coming from the system of which you are an intrinsic part. But when an energy unit such as yourself sees itself as not part of the system at all, but as a product of the system, the life form has created an illusion. It is one of 10 illusions of humans. It is the illusion of disunity. And then comes chaos theory and quantum physics. Yes, and quantum physics is simply the scientific explanation for how God, the system, if you please, looks at its individual parts and watches itself impacting those parts. You would call this phenomena in spiritual terms a high level of consciousness or increased self-awareness. It is when that which is aware experiences the fact that it affects that of which it is aware. Nothing which is observed is unaffected by the observer, the first law of quantum physics. Good, that's very good. Now the energy unit or life form experiences itself as part of the system again. It becomes aware that the more rapid is the vibration of its energy, the higher is its frequency, and the more impact it has on the energy around it. This is absolutely fascinating, and I can even see how this applies to my own life. The more I become self-aware, the more impact I see myself having upon the life that's going on around me. The more I have the sense of that, the more conscious I imagine I would become of my potential impact, and I can take that into account as I make future decisions. That's the way it's supposed to work. But many earthly life forms, most actually, cannot always determine their impact with precise precision ahead of time. So unpredictability becomes part of the system. This is called creation. It is the creation and the creator being the same thing. Everything is predictable in the energy unit you call a rock. Left to its own devices, it will continue to manifest itself in precisely the same way over an extended period. Of course, even the rock is the outcome of a larger process, and that produced it. It evolved out of something else, but that process took a very long time because the energy units that produce it vibrate at a very slow speed and very low frequency. Now along comes a human being, an energy unit or life form vibrating at a much higher frequency, having the capacity to see in the rock what the rock does not and cannot see in itself. The human does something totally unpredictable from the rock's point of view. The human being picks up the rock, puts it in a tumbler, polishes it until it reveals itself to be a shining and beautiful stone. The much slower energy system of which the rock is normally a part can also produce the same result, with the earth itself becoming the tumbler and the elements rubbing against the rock until a precious stone appears. Yet that can take eons, where a human being who knows how to move energy around consciously to produce a specific result can produce the same outcome in a few hours. This is conscious creation. I get it. Everything I do is part of the creation process inherent in all of life, and after I evolve to a really high level, I can actually predict and even control the way in which I am impacting life. I can become the master of my own destiny. Now you are indeed getting it. Now do you see what this all has to do with your daily life? Once you understand all of this, once you start looking at life and God and creation in this way, it begins to shift your whole ground of being. It changes the way you hold the experience of life itself and yourself in it. And so we see that all of life is creative, with the more evolved elements of life able to be consciously creative. And the more evolved a life form is, the more consciously it will create. Finally, as life forms become even more self-aware, they begin to access different levels of consciousness, including the level of consciousness from which they themselves emerged. This produces a reversal in the separation phenomena, the second pivotal moment, a disappearing of individual consciousness, a melting of it into the all in an experience that some Eastern mystics have called bliss or nirvana. I can achieve this. I can get to that place right now if I want to. That is what you are telling me, right? That is exactly what I'm saying. Yes, bliss is the natural state of being of all life, and all life forms return to it. Highly evolved life forms move in and out of this state at will. It is the cyclical movement in and out of bliss that propels life itself and causes it to be. Bliss, the highest vibration of energy that is possible. This is heaven, this is nirvana, this is the reunification with the one. This is the end of the cycle. The emergence out of bliss, the birthing that it produces, is the lowest vibration of the energy that is possible. This is the beginning of the cycle. The cycle of life never ends. If it did, life itself would cease to be. Such a thing cannot occur because life will not allow it. Life is ruled by three basic principles: functionality, adaptability, sustainability. It functions, or having atrophied to the point of near dysfunctionality, it adapts. And having adapted, it sustains itself. Always, life sustains itself. Life is eternal. All things in life support life. Then we have nothing to worry about on this planet. But it is the second of the three basic principles of life that you must watch carefully. For you see, life is eternally adaptable. That is, it will change itself. It will alter the form in which it is expressed in order to ensure that it is sustained. What does that mean to me? What does that mean to humans? It means that your planet could become a living hell. It means that the energy system of which you are a part will adapt itself in whatever way it has to in order to make certain that life itself is sustained. And so, if you, as part of life, adapt the life system of which you are a part in such a way that the system itself is threatened at the level of functionality, the system will counter-adapt in order to sustain itself. And you, my friend, may not like the way in which it does this. The system is bigger than your little self. And the mistake you are making is imagining that your little self is bigger than the system, which of course is the big self. You do not stand outside of the system, but are part of the system. And the system will adapt, and the part of it that you are before it will allow you to adapt it beyond its functional limits. This system is the process that you called change, isn't it? That's correct. This system is then what you called God. Yes, you could put it that way. Oh boy, another definition. Love, light, and blessings.